Hey there, BookTube, welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, November 15th. We're here for a quick Friday Reads check-in. And it's a Friday quickie because, well, Baby Brown is here and I don't know how much of this video and how much of filming she wants to endure before she's ready to tell you about the books that she's been reading this week. So I'll start off with my books and she'll round it out with some of what she's been reading this week. This week I started and finished 2 books. I continued with a book. And I started a book that I haven't finished. And then I have some books that I'm looking at to get started. The first book that I finished this week was Lake Season by Denise Hunter. This is the beginning of a romance series. It's a Bluebell Inn romance set in North Carolina. And the main character that we're following, she is one of a trio of siblings. Her name is Marley Bennett. She has an older brother and a younger sister. And just before the novel opens, their mother and father died in a car accident, and the 3 children are gathered to try to decide how to deal with their parents' legacy. Their parents wanted to restore their childhood home to an inn. It had been an inn in some former time, and they've decided to try to get that back. So some months elapse, and they've gone to the place where they're ready to open the inn, and their first guest is a young man who is an author. And the main character, Molly, she is a fan of his work without knowing who he is because he's been writing his novels under a pseudonym. It's literary, it is romantic. There is discussion of differences in religious beliefs, but also the characters invoke their own spiritual principles in that they mention biblical principles and how they pray and how they relate to each other based on their relationship with God. So there's a little bit of that. It's not overwhelming in the book. So if you're not a huge fan of Christian fiction, this does not become a deterrent because it's not all over the book. But there is discussion about religious prejudice and bigotry. And there's also, oh, I should have told you, it also includes a dual timeline narrative because there's a mystery at the center of this romance. The 2 main characters are falling in love as they are trying to solve a mystery that involves 2 older people, and we also get a flashback following that older couple at the time when their romance was happening. So it was a really interesting read. I was glad that I read it. And Lake Season by Denise Hunter, I'd like to pick up the future books in the series, so I'll let the publishers know that they should keep me on this because this was an arc, and hopefully because I've given this a positive review, maybe they'll ask me to review the next books in the series. Another book that I started and finished this week was Cormac McCarthy's The Road. This is a 2006 Pulitzer Prize winning novel, and I feel like after reading this I want to give it a 5-star rating just to annoy Steve Donahue, who's always ranting about this book and saying that this book is terrible. I didn't think it was terrible, but I'm not sure yet how I want to rate it. The synopsis of this one, we have a father and son. They're traveling from the north to the south of what used to be the United States of America, but they're now in this post-apocalyptic period where the population has mostly disappeared. The people who are left are either chasing them or need help in some way. Over the course of their travels, we get to see this father and son interact with a couple of different groups of strangers. The first time they meet someone on the road, the little boy asks his father to help the man, and the father says, no, we can't help, we don't want to help. They're both unwilling and unable to help, but probably more of the unwilling extreme because they don't have anything to really offer to this person. And I felt like that was so difficult to read just because here we have 2 sets of travelers, and while they aren't really separated much in terms of their possessions, they seem to be separated by humanity, because no matter how little you have, you would expect that you'd be able to share it with someone who's a little worse off than you are. But in this desperate circumstances this father and son have found themselves in, it's as though they have to be hoarding what little they have, and I found that so difficult to read. But much later in the book, they meet other people, and this time they're able and they're willing to help and they're willing to give of their means. Yes, it's about a father and son traveling. We don't get a lot of details about what has caused the apocalypse and where the other people have gone, because How is it that this father and son have survived when most other people seem to have died out? We don't know why the woman in their family has left. We don't know how long they've been traveling. We do know that the boy, even the boy's age, is never quite specified. But the story seems to be a lot more metaphoric than reality-based. The subject matter was difficult to read and to imagine, but also how humanity behaves in this kind of circumstance was very difficult to visualize. So I'm giving this book right now a tentative 4-star rating just because I want to process a little bit more how I felt about what this narrative means in its more metaphoric sense, as opposed to just the story of a man and his boy traveling from the north to the south for who knows what, for who knows why, to go who knows where, and enduring all that they endure in this story. It's a very sad story, just because you see this man and his son being each other's entire world. But it's also hopeful because of the relationship that they have with each other, the way they communicate, the way they process what is happening to them, and how they envision the future. It's a really great story. I wish I'd read it before, but I read it now. So those are the 2 books that I finished this week. I also started, I think I might have started this last week, Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. I'm still reading it. This is the personal account of the Mount Everest disaster that happened in 1996. And Krakauer takes us through this chronological journey of him and his team climbing Mount Everest. And climbing Mount Everest is not as simple as just getting your gear, getting your mountaineering gear and going up and coming back down. In fact, on Everest, there's base camp and there are several camps at different altitudes as you climb to the top. And part of the acclimatization process is to get used to the altitude. So they stay at base camp and they ascend and they descend, and then they go back and they find a different camp and they ascend a little bit more and they stay at some altitude for some time to try to get their body accustomed to being in this new environment. And it's a lot. And the journey up Mount Everest is one thing, but Krakauer is also there representing a group. He's a part of a group of climbers. He's being hosted by someone who does this professionally in terms of getting people up the mountain. But he's also there, his group is also there sharing the mountain climbing experience with other groups from other places who have similar but different aspirations. And part of the book, part of the narrative, is to go through some of the dynamics that are happening between these groups. Some of them are competitors, some of them are people who just have their own issues as they're climbing. Like he talks about a woman who she's a media darling and she's not physically capable of climbing this mountain, so she has a Sherpa who's pretty much attaching her body to his and climbing the mountain for her. And it's pretty interesting, pretty fantastic what he's saying about the whole experience of being there. We know that there's a disaster where a lot of people lose their lives, and we're at the point where I am in this book, we haven't gotten to that yet. I have about 80 pages left to read in the book, and I'm just at the place where the author has reached the summit himself, and he's talking about the challenges of being there and not being able to fulfill some of the promises that he had made to his wife or to the magazine that paid for him to go on this trip, because he gets to the top of the mountain and realizes that half of the journey is still to go, because descending the peak is almost as treacherous as ascending it. So I'm reading this kind of slowly, just trying to take in all the details that the author is sharing with us. I'm reading this one again to fulfill the sports category for Nonfiction November's challenge, and I should finish this one either today or over the weekend. So I'll update you on that in my vlog. The other book that I started this week was The Swerve by Stephen Greenblatt, and this is a Pulitzer Prize winning book. Or is this the Pulitzer Prize winning author? I'm not sure. These stickers from the Pulitzer Prize can be a little bit misleading. I'm not sure if it's the author who's the Pulitzer winner or the book. In any case, The Swerve is a historical read. This is also from my nonfiction November TBR, and I don't remember which prompt I used this one to meet, but it is on my nonfiction November TBR. The Swerve is about a man named Poggio from the 1400s. He was the secretary for the Pope when the Pope was arrested, and because of the loss of favor for the Pope, all the people who worked with him also not just lost their jobs but lost their position in the society. And so Poggio decided to find a new career, which for him was book hunting. And because this is a historical read, the author did a lot of research into what book hunting meant. During this time, the book industry has almost died, except that monks are now keeping the tradition of book copying and book reading alive. The monks have an order from Saint Benedict that they have to read daily, and he stumbles upon a poem by Lucretius, which is going to be the poem at the center of this book. I started this one a couple of days ago. I just passed the 50-page mark or so, but I'm taking it slowly because there's a lot of history here that I'm not very familiar with. And I'm taking the time to do my own research as I go. So I'm not just reading this story, not just reading about Poggio, but also learning and absorbing the history as I go. So I'm hoping that I'll finish this one by the end of next week, but I'm not sure. In any case, I'll give myself until the end of the month to finish The Swerve by Stephen Greenblatt. It's been on my shelves for a year or two, so keeping it going and making it last for the rest of the month or even beyond is no problem. So those are the two nonfiction books that I have in progress, and I have resumed reading The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. That is my fiction read for right now, and I need to pick up another book maybe later, maybe tomorrow, maybe over the weekend. We'll see. Those are the books that I have in progress, and yeah, that's my reading for right now. Baby Brown has fallen asleep, so I'll tell you about the two books that we were reading this week. We're still reading the two books from last week, and we've incorporated two new books this week. The first is Good Night, Curious George, and this is by Margaret and H.A. Ray. And this one is delightful. You'll see it on the vlog. It is a touch and feel book, so each one of the pages has something to interact with. So this one is an actual book that you can turn like so, and each one of the pages has some kind of texture to it. Like this one has the rug that is textured, the bedspread that is textured, and it's just a little poem with Curious George as the boy character, and we're going through his goodnight ritual. Fascinating. Baby Brown has not adapted any of those goodnight rituals yet, but maybe we'll get her to it later. And then I have this fantastic book that someone gave me for the baby shower, and this is an adaptation of Bob Marley's song Every Little Thing's Gonna Be Alright. His daughter Cedella Marley adapted the lyrics from the song for the book, and so this book is just the lyrics with these fabulous illustrations. Oh my word. Oh, I love it. And reading this one is a little bit of a cultural experience because we are listening to Bob Marley sing while we read this book and getting these scenes from a Jamaican childhood, kind of. So yeah, we're going through those two books right now. And as the weeks go by, we will add more books and I'll tell you more about them. So that's the little Friday Reads check-in. Baby Brown is sleeping. You'll have to watch the vlog if you want to see her. So thanks for watching this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. We'll be back over the weekend with more videos. We have vlog footage that we'll be putting together, and we hope that you'll come back and share the next video with us. So until then, you want to have a little cameo? You want to show the people your face? Suppose they don't see the vlog. There she goes. She's sleeping. So thanks for watching. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. We'd love to talk with you in the comments. If you've read any of the adult books or any of the baby books, let's talk down there. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.